Hello and welcome back to the William Gomez podcast. I am William Gomez and I'm grateful to have you here. Today, we continue our journey through some of the most meaningful ideas in psychoanalytic thinking. We have explored desire, identification, symbolic authority, and the structure of enjoyment. Each of these concepts helps us understand how language, relationship, and meaning shape our emotional lives. But there is one dimension that sits quietly alongside all of this, a dimension that resists explanation and pushes beyond the limits of language. This dimension is called the real. The real is one of the most challenging ideas in psychoanalysis, not because it is abstract, but because it describes something everyone has felt. The real appears in moments when words fail. It appears when we cannot make sense of what we feel. It appears when something overwhelms us, shakes us, or touches us in ways we cannot explain. The real is not the physical world. It is not nature or the environment. The real is the part of experience that cannot be captured by symbols or organized by meaning. It is the unspoken, the unspeakable, and the ungraspable. To understand the real, let us begin with a simple truth. Human beings live within language. We use words to communicate, to think, to reflect, and to assign meaning to our experiences. Language creates a sense of order. It allows us to understand ourselves and others. It helps us make sense of the world. But language has limits. There are moments when words are too small, too narrow, or too fragile to contain what we feel. The real lives in those moments. Imagine an experience so moving that it takes your breath away, joy that overwhelms, grief that leaves you speechless, shock that freezes your thoughts, a sudden moment of awe. These are experiences of the real, not because they are dramatic, but because they exceed the capacity of language. We struggle to capture them. We reach for words and realize they do not fit. The real is what remains outside speech. The real also appears in the trauma. Trauma is not defined merely by what happened, but by the fact that the experience resists symbolization. It cannot be fully integrated into memory. It returns in fragments, sensations, images, or bodily reactions that do not fit into a coherent narrative. The real is the force of what cannot be processed. It is the gap in understanding. It is the unsaid, the unspoken, and the unfinished. This does not mean the real is always frightening. The real can be beautiful. Moments of profound connection or transformation can touch the real. Experiences that shift our perspective or open new parts of ourselves also belong to the real. The real is not the negative side of life. It is the side of experience that exceeds comprehension. The real also interacts with desire. Desire is shaped by the symbolic order, by the limits and structures we explored earlier. But at the center of desire is something missing, something unnameable. This unnameable element is tied to the real. Desire orbits around a gap that cannot be filled, a void that cannot be defined. The real is the impossible object of desire, the thing that desire reaches for but can never fully attain. This is why desire can feel so powerful. It reaches toward something beyond meaning, something beyond the symbolic world. The real gives desire its intensity. It is the horizon we long for but cannot describe. The real is also intertwined with jouissance. Jouissance is the experience of enjoyment that pushes past the limits of comfort. When jouissance becomes overwhelming, when it exceeds symbolic order, it brushes against the real. In those moments, we may feel carried away, overwhelmed, or disoriented. Something powerful has been stirred that does not fit into language. Jouissance touches the real because it exceeds the boundaries of meaning and the rules of the symbolic world. The real is not only emotional, it is also physical. Bodily sensations often touch the real. The body speaks in ways that words cannot. A tightening in the chest, a sudden warmth, a trembling, a sense of heaviness or lightness. These sensations come before meaning. They carry an intensity that is not easily articulated. The real is experienced in the body because the body precedes language. The real also appears when the symbolic order breaks down, when something does not make sense, when an event disrupts our usual frameworks, when we encounter something that does not fit our expectations or categories. These disruptions remind us that the symbolic world is only one layer of reality. Beneath it lies the real, which does not obey rules. Anxiety often arises in moments when the real appears too directly. Anxiety is not simply fear. Fear has an object. Anxiety has none. Anxiety emerges when the symbolic framework that normally contains our experience becomes unstable. Something has surfaced that cannot be named or organized. The real has come forward. This is why anxiety feels diffuse, unbounded, and difficult to explain. It is an encounter with the unsymbolized. But the real is not something to fear. It is something to recognize. It is a reminder that language does not capture everything. Meaning is never complete. Human life is richer, deeper, and more complex than what we can explain. When we acknowledge the real, we become more grounded. We accept that some aspect of experience remain beyond understanding. The real also appears in love. Love often exceeds language. We say, I love you, but the phrase carries only a fraction of what we feel. Love touches a part of us that language cannot capture. It moves us in ways we cannot articulate. It surprises us, humbles us, lifts us, and sometimes frightens us because it feels so vast. In love, the real whispers through the symbolic world. The real is also present in moments of transformation. Life transitions often disrupt familiar structures. Birth, loss, illness, growing older, moving to a new phase of life. These moments can feel ungraspable. Something shifts beneath the surface of identity. These thresholds often bring us into contact with the real because they mark the boundary between what is known and what is unknown. Creativity too touches the real. Artists, writers, musicians, and thinkers often speak of ideas or images that arrive suddenly, as if from beyond. Inspiration cannot be forced, it comes from somewhere outside symbolic control. That spark of creation is the real breaking through, offering something new, something unshaped by previous meaning. Understanding the real helps us develop humility. It reminds us that we do not know everything, that others hold experiences beyond what we can imagine, and that life contains mysteries we cannot solve. This humility opens space for compassion. When someone struggles to articulate their pain, we can remember that the real resists symbolization. When someone cannot explain their feelings, we can acknowledge the limits of language. When we ourselves feel overwhelmed, we can recognize that the real has surfaced. The real also reminds us that control is limited. We cannot manage everything, we cannot explain everything, we cannot predict everything. Accepting this can bring peace. It allows us to loosen the grip of perfection, to soften our anxieties about uncertainty, and to trust that life moves through phases that cannot always be understood. As we approach the end of this episode, let us reflect on what the real teaches us. It teaches us that language, as powerful as it is, does not contain the whole of experience. It teaches us that some truths are felt rather than spoken. It teaches us that human life is shaped by both meaning and mystery. It teaches us that desire reaches beyond what can be articulated, and it teaches us that being human involves encountering the unknown with curiosity and compassion. In our next episode, we will explore the concept of the imaginary, one of the three major registers of experience in psychoanalytic theory. The imaginary shapes how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and how images influence our emotional lives. It will help us bring together earlier ideas in a way that deepens our understanding of identity. But for now, I hope this episode helps you recognize the presence of the real in your own life, not as something to fear, but as something that quietly reminds you of your depth, your complexity, and the richness of being human. Thank you for listening. This is the William Gomes podcast. Take care of yourselves, stay curious, and I will speak with you again soon.